Cool. Well, I'm still Joe.
Hey, Joe.
Again, welcome y'all. So we've got this panel for you guys. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to briefly introduce ourselves, although that kind of seems more like a formality than anything else with this crew because we all know each other really well. So we'll see how this goes. Some of these questions you guys may be able to be up here and answer a bunch of these questions. Actually, all of you could. So, but you know, we got this time together, so it's going to be great, and we'll see what happens. So, I am the counselor / owner for Cornerstone. Work primarily in Houston, although I'm everywhere now. And I am also a product of Cornerstone. I got sober in the group when I was 14 and went through outpatient and did everything that your kids are doing. Satellite meetings, functions, awakened in the summer of 2000, which seems like a long time ago now. And have a little over 26 years in recovery. I had 26 years in September, so just a little bit over now, and have been, appreciate that, and have been working in the field of recovery since April of 2005 in various capacities, treatment centers, prevention programs, and have been back with Cornerstone since May of 2011. And really love my job. I don't really consider it a job. I really believe that this is like what I was born to do. This is like my calling. And it takes a special kind of crazy to do this work, as you guys know. And I feel like I'm living my dream every day. Like I remember being 14 and getting sober in Cornerstone and looking at my counselor in outpatient and thinking, I'm gonna do this someday. Like I'm gonna be him. And so literally, this is like been and still is like a dream come true for me. So that's a little bit about me. I've got a great panel here for you guys, and I'm gonna let them introduce themselves. Love y'all.
Love Joe.
Love you, Joe.
Hi, I'm Aubrey Adams.
Hey, Aubrey.
Hi, Aubrey.
I'm an alumni of Cornerstone. I don't know, I might have been the longest parent standing part of Cornerstone. My son joined in 2016 and I joined full-time in 2018. And I have two qualifiers, my husband and my son. And I'm very grateful for Cornerstone. I'm very grateful for the tools I learned, focusing on myself. I have learned a great deal about recovery, and I am one of the founding members of Maranon, and then I've been able to take what I've learned here and network and grow the tools and the resources we learn here in Cornerstone to across the nation and now across the world. We have people that come. Joe hosts the meeting with a nonprofit I developed, and we have people from Australia and New Zealand and London join us, and it's really exciting. And what else did you want us to say?
Whatever.
Oh, okay.
Whatever you want to say.
I just want to say that Cornerstone was a lifesaver for me. Went through a big crisis in Colorado. I did not know marijuana could be such a damaging drug, but it was. And coming to Houston and finding like refuge here in this community really saved my life. And I didn't realize the work I needed to put into myself and my program to become a healthier me. And for that, I'm just eternally grateful for it. And I'm so grateful for the community that I have here. I mean, I've gotten so much love and support. I could spend an hour describing it. So there's a lot of wonderful people that I've met along the way, angels here in the audience. And I think I learned the most in Cornerstone by hosting, being a host mom. That really had me really focus on what I needed to focus on and what I didn't need to focus on, and what I could control and what I couldn't control. So if you haven't hosted, I highly recommend it. And love you guys.
Awesome.
Love you, Aubrey.
Hey, I'm Chris.
Hey, Chris.
I'll make it short so we can get this, time for you guys. So I'm also alumni with my wife and our daughter. So we have three teens. our daughter, who is now 19, brought us into the program in spring of 2019 when she had just turned 15. So our daughter grew up in this program, and she is a product of her adolescence through this program. For Christy and I, we have been with her all that time through this program, and we all were grateful and able to awaken a year ago today, which is our anniversary for this. So this is special to me and for us because 1 year ago I was out there and not up here. So that's special. I will just say that I have a personal connection with everyone at the table here, as well as almost all of you in the room, and I'm at the point now where I know that I will always have to be around people that want to be well. This is now a lifestyle, and that will continue in some capacity forever. So I love you guys.
Love you, Chris.
Do it that way. All right. Hello, I'm Tim.
Hey, Tim.
I'm Cornerstone. I work for Cornerstone. I work with Joe. I'm a staff aide. I'm also a product of Cornerstone. I awakened like a year, spring of like 2022 or 2021.
I think last year.
Last year? Okay. All right. A year and a half ago. I came into Cornerstone at 16 years old, like fresh out of treatment. My parents immediately got pretty involved. Went through the whole deal, did outpatient, did hosting, hosted kids, sponsored kids, did everything you could do with Cornerstone, and then awakened, and then after about a year, started working here. So, I don't really have much to say, but I'm excited to do this. So,
Cool.
Thanks, love you all.
Love you, buddy.
Love you, Tim.
All right, so we might do this a little bit differently this time around. So, because we got some questions up here, but like I said, most of you guys, if not all of you guys in the audience, are pretty qualified to answer these questions. So if you think of anything or any other questions that you want to ask, just like, is it okay to do that? Is it gonna mess up the video? No. Just like raise your hand and we'll answer them. We can make this pretty informal. But we'll start with this one and kind of see where it takes us. So what is the most important thing parents should do to support their kid? Parents. I'll chime in there.
The most important thing a parent can do to support their kid is get out of their way, let them be who they are, maintain the boundaries you set in your home, and give them a consequence if they break it. Clear and simple. And then show up for them, loving and supportive, outside of the topic of drugs. Connect with them, have fun, show up, do the activities. Even if they're currently using, just try to connect with them and have fun with them, and just get rid of that kind of trauma bond with them when it comes to drugs.
Cool.
And
I would do the same thing. No, would do the same thing, just said a little bit differently, that from what I've learned is that from a clinical point of view, through the support of Cornerstone, that there's tremendous data behind this. These are very strong markers that the more engaged we are as parents in our teens' recovery as well as our program, the more successful they will be. That there's very strong data to support that. So I would answer it in one way, in that you should be involved because you need to be from that aspect. But then in terms of why it's important is because I think most of us come to appreciate that we come for our kids, but we stay because of ourselves. As part of that data, there's very strong data that we are in some way part of what our teens are going through, whatever that looks like. because most of what we talk about is learned behavior. And it's really impossible to support our kids in their behavior without looking at ourselves. So that's why.
You want to answer that from the teen perspective?
Teen perspective. Yeah, so is the question, what's the most
important thing you can do to support your kid?
I think kind of piggybacking on what everybody else said is just being involved. I think that's the biggest thing. Like having my parents be involved with the program was like just an extra thing to keep me going. And then also like having them work their program, make sure that I'm accountable to something at home. I know for a lot of kids, if their parents aren't involved, it's like they go home and just, the program falls out it stays outside. So very grateful to have that. And also yes, I'm, primarily we're here for me because I was, the kid and I caused all this stuff, but also like family is totally in shambles. So like, even if I just got better, if my parents weren't working their program, the relationship in the family wouldn't get better either. It's not a one-way street, right? It's a partnership. So, I think just being involved and working your program is the best thing you can do for your kids.
Cool. Yeah, those are some great answers. Whenever I think of this question, I almost always think of there's a Buddhist saying that the greatest thing that I can do for you is take care of me. And the greatest thing that you can do for me is to take care of you. And I think that totally applies here as far as like what's the most important thing I can do for my kid? Well, that's take care of you. That's the most important thing you can do. And then there's several branches that question goes off into as far as like these guys are saying, like getting involved. There's definitely something to be said about the teens in the program with the best outcomes or that do the best have parents where there's strong family support. There's parents that are engaged and involved in many different levels. Coming to meetings, working with sponsors, coming to climbers, getting involved in some of the extracurricular stuff like the yoga or bike riding or golf or softball, hosting events, hosting guys' night, girls' night, functions, hosting kids in their home, so on and so forth. Like the more levels, the more like kind of, if you will, like levels of insulation that I have, the more ties or tethers I have to really any kind of healthy support group, the better I'm going to do, and by extension, the better the people around me are going to do, or your kids are going to do. And there's a lot that goes into that, especially for the parents and looking at things like where I have created entitlement, because entitlement's a learned behavior, where I've created entitlement in my child, which damages their self-esteem, and almost always through the best of intentions, right? Like I judge myself by my intentions and the world judges me by my actions. So like where I've created entitlement, where I've enabled some of the behavior, like through my codependency or weak boundaries, so on and so forth. So the more aware I become of those things and the harder I'm working on those things, the better it's going to be for my child, for sure. Okay. Should consequences for shots be specific or subjective and situational? So just for the sake of the video, even though I think everybody in this room understands what shots are, the concept. Shots, the idea behind the shots are just rules for the house. We call them shots because it comes from one of our suggestive readings, Beyond the Yellow Brick Road, which is one of the books that we recommend that parents read. And you want to think about it like you're in a gun battle with your child. It's like the Wild West, you're in a gun battle with your child, and you got your 6-shooter. So you have 6 shots, so you want to make them count. No more than 6 shots. You don't want to have like a long document like the Constitution or multiple pages. 1, because your kid's never going to follow that. And 2, you're going to have a really hard time enforcing it. But if you've got something that is simple, that is designed to take the emotion out of it, which is what the shots are designed to do. Very, not easy, but simple. Like, you do this, then this happens, period. Like, You're driving your car, you get a ticket, you lose the car, right? That's like a natural consequence for that behavior. You've got a phone that I'm allowing you to have. I find you inappropriately using the phone or using the phone in a dishonest way. Well, that behavior is letting me know you're not ready to handle that privilege, so I'm going to remove it. That's a consequence. And so for the consequences, as far as like should they be specific or subjective and situational, I think that it really depends on the home and what makes sense for you and what is effective for you as far as like the parent-driven recovery piece, I think is really important. The thing that I almost always recommend and suggest to parents is to not make your consequences time-based, but to make them accomplishment-based. Like, there's difference between you're losing your phone for 3 days, which, you know, me being the kid, like I can do anything for 3 days. I can be on my best behavior and for 3 days just to get my phone back, but nothing is really changing. Nothing is shifting or changing internally. I'm not really recognizing the wrong of my behavior and showing effort to fix it. If it's something that's more accomplishment based, of like, you're gonna lose your phone for, you know, X amount of time, but it's gonna be like until I see like verifiable honesty in your behavior for X amount of time, 7 days, 2 weeks, a month, like whatever, and that it's consecutive. That like if you're honest for 3-4 days and then you're dishonest, well, your time starts over. You know, and so that like puts a little bit more of a squeeze on the kid. It makes it more about the behavior-centered consequences. Like your behavior is gonna let me know if you're really earning this privilege back or not, as opposed to just a time-based thing, which generally proves not to be as effective as like the accomplishment or behavior-based. That's like the second time I've almost dropped my phone. So I'm gonna pass it on to the parents to answer that.
I don't know if I could add anything to that. That was brilliant, more than I could say. But maybe if I could just give an example, I would definitely say the consequence needs to match whatever the behavior it is to the best of your ability. I found it very hard sometimes to know what that consequence is, because I kind of just freeze, you know, when I got to implement a consequence to somebody I'm so codependent with. So I would just recommend talking to your healthy peers, talking to your counselor, and know that you don't have to pick that consequence at that specific time. So take your time, think about your consequence to make it effective as you can. Make sure you're implementing it clearly and kindly. We call it be clear, be kind, be gone, and not discuss it with them. Once you've made that decision, stick with that decision so you don't get away from it. And just an example of kind of being concerned when you implement it, and maybe this is going off on a tangent, but like let's say the behavior is a destructive behavior of like vaping marijuana, and you could just say to the kid, I'm concerned why you are vaping marijuana, because it's harmful to you. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to make an appointment with our counselor. We're going to take their guidance and advice of what our next step is, and we're all going to get that support we need. And then we're going to manage your phone from now on until we are for sure that you are taking really good care of yourself. And then walk out of the room. So that's an example I like to use about that. So it's very specific to the self-destructive behavior of the vaping marijuana. So, yeah.
Great.
Yeah, just one more thing to add, because that's all, agree with everything, is I do think, and everything makes sense in retrospect. So in looking back, it is an iterative process in terms of this, but in retrospect, once I learned more about the stages of recovery, pre-contemplation, contemplation, action, those things, there are different techniques that you can apply in those stages. And so I do think in early recovery, shots and consequences have to be more specific, directional, particularly if the teen is in pre-contemplation. They don't even know they got a problem, right? So it's got to be more directional. It's not about, did you take out the trash today? You're fighting for your teen's life, right? So it has to be about the mission objective. So I think where you are in the mission objective is really how to outline the shots and consequences, and they evolve, they mature. I don't know how many iterations we had, but we've had a lot. And as Alyssa matured or progressed, we were able to go more broader boundary, more all-inclusive type, be honest, take care of yourself. Okay, those are really, really nebulous things when you've got a teen that doesn't even know what day it is because they're in their addiction fog, right? So it's about getting to a meeting. It's about, it's very, very directional. So I don't know. I would say there's no right answer to that. I just think it's where you are relative, or where your teen is relative in their program.
Cool. Do you want to answer that? Do you have any thoughts from the losing end?
I definitely deserved more shots than I got called. I think I really agree with what Chris said. I think you can't treat, you got a kid who's a few weeks sober or even a few months sober. You can't compare that to somebody who's been sober for 3 years, who's, as far as like shots and consequences go, like a lot of what Chris I really agree with. Like, it's not gonna transfer over. Kids who just getting sober doesn't know what's going on. You're gonna tell them you broke a shot, and they're like, I didn't even know that was part of the shot. So being really specific, and then like Chris is like broadening it up as time goes on, as they mature. But I think it also can be pretty subjective and situational. Kid misses a bus and, sleeping on the hardwood floor for a month, it's a little extreme. But I think shots and consequences also were a big part of my recovery. I really didn't want to sleep in the garage, so I, made sure my email went out every night. I don't want to sleep out in the garage. I did one time, and a cockroach flew in my face, so I went inside. Never slept in there again. Definitely should have, but I don't have much else to add.
Nice. Well said. The last thing that I'll say about that, because you just made me think of it, is, and this is like some intel for you guys, and some of this it'll be refresher, but chances are your kids' brains operate similar to how mine does and how this guy's does. That, like, you tell me if you think I'm wrong. But until the consequences for my behavior start to outweigh the benefits of the behavior, then there's not a lot of motivation to want to change the behavior. And generally, we don't change because we want to. We change because we have to. I didn't get sober when I got sober because I wanted to. I didn't have any intention of getting sober when I got sober. The consequences just finally started to mount, and I had that pain, which is a necessary and vital ingredient for the desire to change. I was just finally like, okay, fine. Like, what do I got to do? Because this sucks. I don't want this anymore. This is no longer fun, or I'm not enjoying this anymore. And that wasn't until the heat really started to get turned up, which I think rings true with your experience as well. Okay, cool. So what is the benefit of things like yoga, riders in recovery, doing the 40 days, getting involved in golf, softball, like the extracurricular stuff? And there's like a lot of different answers to that. And but I would just say that one of the main benefits of getting involved in things like that is that it plugs you into a community, like another community that is just full of super winners and full of support and healthy individuals and healthy activities for you and your kid to be involved with and engaged with. And it's not just like coming to yoga or coming to a bike ride or joining us for softball. Like, we really set it up to where those things have to be earned. Like, you have to earn your spot in yoga. You can lose it, and you have to earn your spot in softball. Some of your kids in here have lost that like privilege to be able to play for a period of time, and that's really important, because one of the key things that is like centered around everything that we do is around their self-esteem. Because when we've got pretty good self-esteem, we're less prone to make self-destructive decisions or act out in self-destructive behavior. And so when we're earning privileges like a phone, a car, a laptop, participating in yoga or riders or softball or things like that, when we're earning it, that's really good for our self-esteem and also our character development. When we get things that we're not really earning or we're not really deserving, well, that lowers the bar, and that's damaging for our self-esteem and creates entitlement. That's where entitlement comes from. When we get things that we don't really deserve or we haven't really earned, but we feel like we deserve it, we feel like we're entitled to it, that's where that behavior is taught. And so that's really the key difference there. It's not just coming to these events, but it's actually earning your spot at these events, writing us an essay for how you're going to show up at the yoga studio and how you're going to help us to protect that relationship with big yoga, showing up prepared, hydrated, eating that day with your mat, water, towel, and these behaviors translate into other areas of their lives. And how you see them show up at yoga or prepared or not prepared for a bike ride or so on and so forth is indicative of how they're taking care of themselves in other areas of their recovery. So it all really ties in together quite beautifully. And that doesn't even talk about the physical benefits or the physical aspect of getting involved in those activities, which we could talk a lot about that as well. So I know all of you guys have participated a bunch in all of these activities. Tim is like a softball legend at this point. broke his wrist sliding into third. And I was standing right there. I watched it happen. But we're also 7 or 8 time champions at this point too. So that's pretty cool. Why don't you go first?
Yeah, we are softball champions.
We are? 8 times.
Yeah, the benefit, man, I am such a strong believer, and almost all these programs are very physical programs, but I'm a super strong believer that your physical recovery and physical health is almost equally as important as, your sober recovery, and it has direct correlations to you getting better mentally. And so these programs, getting into yoga and having it be a thing of you have to earn it, right? It's withheld from you until you're able to get there, makes it so when you are there, you have a community of people who have also earned it. And it's not just people are, I don't really want to do it. You get people who are excited to be there, who are strong, or, just good people all together. So these communities like softball, like Rise and Recovery, like yoga, you get a lot of like-minded people who are there for a purpose, to get better, to build a community, to share recovery. And I still am pretty involved in, not as much anymore just because life happens, but I have my own stuff outside of this. I do a recovery program where I volunteer for rock climbing, and that's been the greatest thing since leaving Cornerstone for me. It's being super involved in that and getting physical, sharing my recovery with people, taking them out. So it starts off as when you first get there, just being surrounded by all these really cool people that you see them say yes to all this stuff and makes you want to do that. And then eventually you can be the person that they're looking up to, man, I want to get like that guy. He's so happy to be here. He's strong. He's freaking pumped. I like what he has. I want that. And so being able to be that person in return, down the line, super duper cool. So yeah, I'm a huge supporter of everything: yoga, Rise and Recovery, TP, softball, all that stuff. It's played a massive role in my recovery and many others.
Cool, great answer, dude. And these two participate in yoga pretty much every Tuesday. So.
Yeah. Is it still recording, Nancy? Okay, I just want to make sure. Yeah, so I would just add, there's not much I could add, is just that, we all know this, we heal in community, and this is a serious situation and a serious disease, and we got to get serious about our behaviors and how we respond to our loved ones and each other and to ourselves. So coming to the activities, you get to have fun, which is healing, and you get to exercise, and I'm a big proponent of that. That was what I did for my career prior to having my nonprofit, and exercise is very healing, and it will improve your recovery. I am a huge proponent of the hot yoga that Cornerstone does. For me personally, it's been life savings, and when I miss a week, I suffer. I do deal with emotional pain still, like we all do, and I have really strong physical pain with neuropathy and my finger that goes up my arm. And when I miss a week of hot yoga, my pain is so much worse. So I really look forward to the hot yoga every week, and I'm always trying to talk myself out of going. But I'm so grateful when I get there, and then I get to bond with everybody with the sweaty hugs. That's a very important part of the Cornerstone culture, because once you can give everybody hugs when they're hot and sweaty, then you're bonded to them for life. It's and these connections, right? The opposite of addiction is connection. So that's what the activities do. You heal, you grow, and putting yourselves in those uncomfortable situations is when we do grow. So that's life, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Man, what was going through my head was the opposite of addiction is connection. So I'm glad you said that. No, I'm glad you said that. So just answer it quickly, similarly, just bringing it down to what I've learned to be truths. And I don't make many like absolutes, but I promise you these are truths. The opposite of addiction is connection. I learned that through Joe in the early days of walking through these doors. The other is we're doing things not because we want to do them, because we need to do them. And I learned that from Kirk, that fortunately we are part of a group where we don't have to feel like doing something to do it. It's not about us. It's not about me. It's all of these things are to get us out of our own head. Right? That doesn't matter. What matters is being around others and not consuming ourselves with us, because it's us that got us here. So, I can go really deep in this subject, but the bottom line is there's a method here, and it's not about what we're doing. It's about why we're doing it. And that's, another thing that Joe asks. If you tell me what you're doing, I'll tell you how you're doing. Just tell me what you're doing. I'll tell you how you're doing. Right? And so it's when we talk about these things, okay, I know how you're doing if you're talking about these things. You're doing well.
The most difficult thing after Cornerstone? Either one you first.
Yeah, so Joe and I've had this conversation. This program can create new codependencies if you let it. What I mean by that is we come into this bubble, the world keeps spinning, and when we come out of it, the puzzle pieces don't fit back together again. The world has continued to roll on, and we have been changing. And that can create as much withdrawal and grieving as when we came into the program from the world that we thought we knew. And it can be debilitating. And so, it's the trick is, how do we make recovery part of our life, but not our life?
Yeah, to me, I've had a hard time transitioning out of the program. As you can tell, I'm still here. Really, I've been part of the program since 2016, so I don't know if I hold that record, but I moved back to Colorado in an area that doesn't really understand recovery and no recovery, and I just thought, okay, I can start connecting and building a community there. And I was doing some stuff, but nothing was really coming together. And then, my son was out, active in his addiction for over 2.5 years, and he called for help. And I took him to Colorado thinking we could help him there, and it didn't work. So, and part of the reason is we didn't have a community and just a structure. And then my son and I both decided we would come back to Houston where we had connections and we knew a community that could help, and we could start engaging ourselves. So even after I've awakened the program, I still came back, and then also because I do want a community, I really have built an online community, and then really hounded and Joe to come and be part of that, and then now people are benefiting from across the country from what he teaches in his program. Because when I got out there outside of the world of Cornerstone, I realized how privileged we are to be part of this program, and that people really don't know like basic concepts of recovery, or they kind of have a different idea, and maybe some of those ideas work, maybe they don't, but we do. There's such a foundation and a structure here, and there's something very special here. So, the 12 step is to spread the word and do service. So that's the best thing I can say to you. If you are having a hard time transitioning out, just start creating outside of this community and spread what you've learned here to other parents, because they are very hungry for it. So, yeah. I'm grateful. And I know that if and I am moving back to Colorado in just a few more weeks again, and if I need to come back and connect with the community, and when I come visit, I'll be calling and saying I want to come to hot yoga. I know I will. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep making the decisions to take care of me. And if that means, Joe might say, okay, you've showed up here like 5 times, you just need to go. Like, if he says that, then that's that.
Never gonna say that.
I've got him plugged into so many people around the country, so I've got a hold of him a little bit. So I'm not letting him go. So join us on Wednesday evenings once you awaken. We would love to have your input, and you will be connected from other families that will just greatly benefit from your experiences. Yeah.
Yeah. Well said. What's been the most difficult thing after Cornerstone?
As a teen, so hopefully by the time you awaken, or even if you're transitioning out, you have a solid support group outside of, Cornerstone, because it's very easy to get yourself into a bubble where, all you talk to is Cornerstone, all you do is Cornerstone. This does take up a lot of time, and it's difficult when you have this set routine. Okay, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I'm at Satellite, I got the meetings, and then on Saturday or Friday, I got guys night, Saturday, I got the meeting, got the function. Like, I'm busy, and then the only off days I'm working or school. And then all of a sudden, it's like you just got a 40-hour work week just completely dropped. So it's very easy to kind of just like lose a sense of purpose whenever you leave. And having an established community outside of this group is super important. And I honestly, I didn't have that great of a community when I left. Like, I struggled for the first few months trying to find, like, one, what to do with my time. I kind of just worked a bunch, and that was all right for a little bit, but I didn't really feel like I had much purpose when I left, because I felt like I made a huge impact when I was here, when I was, a client, and then all of a sudden that's not around, and I didn't want to continue coming to Cornerstone every day, because that's, pretty unhealthy to just never leave, never move on. And so, I had to go look for something that gave me that same sense of purpose. And eventually I found something, and like, I'm super, super grateful that I have it. But that was definitely the hardest thing, was like working with not having a routine anymore, not having the same routine. It really is like a 40-hour work week that just like frees up on your schedule when you're a kid in Cornerstone, even if you're a parent too. So finding something to do with my time, and finding that support group, the people around it. And I think that's what's also important, like with parents, is that when your kid does leave Cornerstone or awakens Cornerstone, like kind of being on them, be like, dude, you've been at home for 2 days not doing anything. Like, you need to get out. Like, we can take you to a meeting or something. That's something that, like, my parents help with. Like, okay, what's the plan with school? What's the plan with work? What's the plan with, like, what are you doing? We need to move. So that's my answer.
Cool. To have a partnership with the counselors. What if we disagree?
Well, Joe and I disagree all the time. No, we don't. So here's the cool thing about Cornerstone. It's been my experience and my observation that the parents are in charge and they make the decisions for the family. The counselors make the decision for the program. And they maintain the boundaries within the program that is healthy for the program to keep it going. And they will not hesitate to kick a family out if the family's bringing some kind of destructive behavior that's going to affect the community. And so you don't worry about it. You can take their advice just like your peers. You can take their advice and listen to their recommendations, but ultimately it's your decision. Whatever happens in your home is what happens in your home, and then let the counselors do their program, and you maintain your family and show up as healthy as you can. Then usually there's not a problem. But you can disagree with Joe. He's not going to come unglued or anything. He's just going to tell you he disagrees and maintain the boundaries in the program. So that's what I've observed.
Cool.
Yeah.
Chris?
Yeah, I think to me the simple answer is because we don't have all the answers, which is what got us here. It's hard to talk to others outside of this program, right? In terms of family or friends and those kind of things. Not because they're not interested or they don't want to participate. It's not the help that we need at that time. And so I just think just from a clinical standpoint, from a advisory standpoint, it's necessary regardless of who's in the seat. But I will also say that, it's just part of the process that, Kiernan used to say, so Kiernan is one of our alumni parents. He used to say, alone we go fast, together we go far. And I really love that because it's just part of it's a part of the process. And I think you just have to be accepting of the feedback and acknowledge that, okay, there's a lot more years of experience that in that feedback than just how I think I've been doing raising my kid up to this point or those kind of things. So I don't really have a lot of wisdom on that, other than I just think it's necessary as part of the process to have have those family sessions and be getting the feedback, because our teens don't tell us everything, nor are they supposed to. But they tell Joe or they tell Kirk, and so we need to be getting the feedback, even though we may not be seeing it, and we can't take that personal. Because as far as I'm concerned, if they're getting better, it doesn't have to be because of me.
Those are some really great answers. So just to piggyback off of that, I mean, there's multiple reasons why you want to have a partnership with the counselor that you're working with. I don't know about first and foremost necessarily, but one of the first things that comes to mind for me is like the healthiest teenager in the world is still a teenager. Still their job to manipulate sometimes, to be dishonest sometimes, to try to triangulate, play mom and dad against each other, play parents against the counselor. Like, it's their job to do those things. If we are a partnership and we are on the same page and we have a united front and we're communicating, and we can communicate honestly and effectively with each other, then the chances of their attempts to manipulate, triangulate, create emotional distress, pull on your heartstrings, all that kind of stuff, because they're still going to try, but the chances of it being effective or successful are way lower. We're going to be able to sniff it out a lot quicker if they're getting the same response from all of us, or if we're doing like a trust but verify kind of thing of like, well, Joe said this. Okay, well, sit down. Let's get Joe on the phone. Let's find out. I'm trusting, but I'm also going to verify because I'm not a fool. And you have lied to me for years and years and years and years and years. And you work in a program or being honest for a month or 2 or 3 or 6 does not necessarily undo years and years and years of your dishonesty or you being out of integrity. Even though there are some marbles in the jar, we want to be smart. So we're still going to trust but verify. Things like that. At the end of the day, it is parent-driven recovery. It's not counselor-driven recovery. you guys are the thing that I like to say is you're Zeus and Hera. You've got the lightning bolts. At the end of the day, what you say goes. You think of me as like a consultant. Basically, you pay me for my opinion, my expertise, so I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to give you my opinion. But at the end of the day, I'm never going to be the guy that tells you how to raise your child or how to run your household. You know, that being said, there's a difference between like us having like the adults running the show and having conversations and then you deciding to go a different route or like change it up a little bit amongst yourselves. And that's cool and that's okay. Like that's the parent-driven recovery. You got to decide what's right for you and your home. There's a difference between that and like going and having conversations with your kid about it. You know, like that kind of undermines the process, that throws the counselor under the bus, that creates like chinks in that armor, which your kids are going to try to exploit. And if we disagree, that's okay too. We don't have to agree all the time. Most of the time, if you're having an honest and real discussion, then somebody's feathers are going to get ruffled. And that's okay. Like, I'm not afraid of that. I know how to work through it. And you know, two people or a unit or a team can pretty much get through or work through anything if they want to. You know, and if we're able to be honest and real with each other and have a real partnership and remain on the same team with the same vision in mind, then we can move mountains together. Like that's really one of the most important things, if not the most important thing, is having that partnership between the clinical team and the parents. Okay, well, does anybody have any questions? Raise your hand if you do, or anything that we haven't gotten to or talked about.
Hey, this is Scott. I'm an alumni of the program, first time caller, long time listener.
Awesome.
Thank you. You know, I think I would love to get advice or feedback, and you've touched on it a little bit here in this panel on. In our situation, we've gone through the program. We're healthier as individuals and healthier as a family, and we're very thankful for Cornerstone. And as we get healthier, and as the kids get older, I kind of wonder, what is my role as a parent, you know, under the theme of parent-driven recovery? I think I know the answer, and I'm trying, but I'm just looking for some feedback, and I'll take my answer off the air.
That's a great question. I want you guys to answer that first.
So the question is, what is your role as a parent-driven recovery when you're past the program? So the great news is if the child is still living in your home, they still need to follow the rules of your home, and there still needs to be consequences. If the child is living outside of their home, they're adulting, they've launched, they're paying their own bills, you're not providing any financial support or roof over their head, then you let go and just enjoy and let them watch them live their life and show up when you can and have a good time with it. And if that child, unfortunately, a lot of them do go back out and test the waters in their 20s and see if they can use again and get away with it. That is a common thing that happens, and sometimes that I don't think I was necessarily prepared for. Then you need to pick your boundaries around that too. So you can stay as healthy, connected as you can with it, but not enable any destructive behaviors at that point. That's just what it brought up to me.
Yeah, so there's a practical response that's going through my head, which is, well, one, Alyssa is the first of our three children. I've still have two kids at home, so I got to keep doing this. And because there's, again, as I started, what we learn here, what we learn is that we're here largely through learned behaviors. So continuing to model that. So so the practical part is I got to continue to model this because the work isn't done. To that point, I think the work diminishes through recovery to allow us to live our lives with recovery, not recovery being our lives, which was the point I made earlier. So given that, I don't think it ever stops. I think it's how do we stay sharp in what we do know and what got us here, so that, as one of the promises tells us, we don't repeat it, right? We don't resent the past, but we're not here to repeat it either. And so I think it's necessary to keep doing it. To keep sharp with it. The other response to it, I think, is an obligation response. In that, what I've also learned is that what we do here and what we do for ourselves and our family is skills and practices and that is perishable and has a shelf life if we don't maintain it. Meaning, if we aren't here today having these discussions with parents on that road or new parents coming in, what does that mean to the future of what we're trying to do? And so I think we learn through recovery that we're here to get well, but we're here to help others get well, and so there's an obligation to that. Now, that's just my personal. I prescribe to that. I'm personally committed to that. That step 12 is also about paying it forward, and the way we do that is we model the behavior for others.
Yeah, go for it.
I just want to add to, and I don't know, there might be somebody who can relate, but so my son is on his own, and at this point, it's none of my business of what he does in his life unless he makes it my business, and he invites me into his life and wants to share with me or wants some kind of input if he asks me. Otherwise, if I try to peddle in his life, then that's just my controlling behaviors. And so me getting out of his way, letting him make his own decisions is the way he's going to grow. I can't make him grow for him. Also, a different perspective too, like outside of the program, like, because I have a spouse that's a qualifier too, where I did get at my breaking point and I just left and got out of his way. Now we're talking about living together again. And so for me, I still need to maintain the boundaries around me. If I move back into his home, I am very clear of what my boundaries are to maintain a household and live under the same roof with him. And then he's clear with me with what that means for him, what his boundaries are with me. And as we're working on our relationship and healing our relationship. And maybe it'll go well, maybe it won't. But either way, whatever it goes, I know that I have the tools in the recovery, and I can take the responsibility to keep myself healthy and safe, regardless of what my loved ones are deciding to do. And I trust in them, and I know they are capable of doing that for themselves too. So just letting go of that, like, we're on the other side of this. It's really not a parent-driven recovery then once they're out on their own. It's their life, it's their recovery, it's their decisions, and I just need to decide how I'm going to show up in their life and how I'm not going to show up in their life.
John, can I piggyback off of that?
Sure.
Before you answer?
Sure. Yeah, I think you need to come grab the mic.
Because I know that there's, I feel like I'm not the only one. So just piggybacking off of that, how do we, when we're never really on the other side, but how do we support their recovery without creating new entitlements financially, and like how do we help support them and create boundaries that will create an expectation of you're not just going to live here for the next 5 years rent free, and like what does that look like? Pursuing your education, like what are my but you still want to support their recovery and not create stressors that, you know what I mean? Like, so how do we give them forward momentum in our parental boundaries, but still support their recovery when they're kind of out of the program and finished with school and things like that?
Okay, so I really think that regardless of whether your kid is, 16 or 66, sober or not, that you want to find your own way of sending a really strong message to them that, like, I'm your parent, I love you, I'm never going to accept a lifestyle from you that's unhealthy, period. And you have to decide whether or not sobriety, as they continue to grow into their adult years, is a piece of that or not. Like when I think of recovery, I think of it as like a pie chart. And sobriety is one of the slices of the pie chart, but there are other components that go into like recovery as a whole. I don't necessarily believe that somebody has to be sober, if you will, to still live a principle-based life, or to still have have recovery in their lives. That being said, most of us who suffer from substance abuse, dependence, addiction, whatever you want to call it, wherever we may fall on that spectrum, or self-destructive behaviors like history with depression or anxiety or self-harm or eating disorder, or the list goes on and on, other compulsive behaviors. Most of us are going to need a lifetime of tough love from our families, and specifically from our parents. And the definition of tough love is that love is not accepting wrong behavior. So I don't care if you're sober or not sober, how old you are, I'm never going to accept wrong behavior from you. I'm never going to accept a lifestyle from you that is unhealthy. And so when they're adults, that obviously it's like a little bit of an art, a little bit of a science. So it's going to look a little different based off of what your boundaries are, what you can and can't accept or live with, depending on what you are seeing in their behavior. But I think that there are some like guideposts there, if you will, as far as like, and this is I'm kind of branching off here a little bit, but this is kind of like what a good teacher or sponsor or counselor will do. They'll kind of like tell you where to look, but not tell you what to see. You got to see whatever it is that you see, but they're going to give you the direction. They're going to be like, well, you should look over here and see what you find, kind of thing. So in the interest of that, I would say, like, as far as me directing you where to look, I would say look at what you determine is and isn't an unhealthy lifestyle from your child, regardless of their age, and whether or not sobriety specifically falls under that category of unhealthy lifestyle. Some of your kids, they are addicts. Probably not all of your kids, and I can't paint anybody with a brush and give them that label. We self-diagnose. But some of your kids are addicts, and for the rest of their lives, they're most likely, I don't want to speak in absolutes, but they're most likely never going to be able to have any kind of healthy lifestyle or manageable lifestyle that involves using drugs or alcohol. So that's just, for some of you guys, that's just the reality. And some of your kids, not so much. Some of your kids got in trouble when they were teenagers, were acting out in self-destructive behavior. Thank God they had parents that loved them so much that they intervened when they did. They learned some skills and are going to be able to go on as adults and be really great moms, dads, husbands, wives, have awesome careers, and probably be able to drink a little bit, socially, or have a glass of wine at dinner, or whatever, and it not wreck their lives, right? Like, everybody's going to fall somewhere different on the spectrum, and I can't really tell you with any great level of intelligence who's where. I could tell from, if you wanted me to, I could dress down each one of your kids based off of like my experience my observation of them and like working with them, I could probably tell you, yeah, they're probably an addict, and or this one, might be okay. The one thing that I will tell you is that if they've continued to have that strong family support, which doesn't mean perfect family support, that's an illusion, but the strong family support of like holding the boundaries, keeping the bar high, being really clear with what my boundaries are. I have to get clear with what my boundaries are and what I'm okay with before I can be clear with others, and continuing to take care of myself. If we've got that and they've got some healthy friends, they're probably going to be okay, regardless, even if they are addicts, because, I am, but if they've got that, if they've got the strong family support and they've got some healthy friends, they're probably, going to be okay. Anything you would add to that? Yeah.
I think, well, I can speak for myself and what I think works for me and what I think works for a lot of teens
please.
is like, so I'm 21. I still live with my parents. They graciously let me stay there while I work and go to school and develop myself. But I know that if my parents told me I had to go to college or I have to do this, I have to do that, it makes me less likely to do those things or get stressed out about them and not want to do it nearly as much. It was a gentle push, or them being interested and involved in my life and being like, hey, like, what do you want to do? Like, what's this? Like, how can we help you to move forward, to like become, or to get educated, to do this? And that was so much more successful with me is reaching out, getting involved with my life and my interests, and then helping me reach those goals that I had. Because again, like, I think the whole, you need to go to school, like it, I know for myself and for a lot of the kids here, it does not work when you tell them they need to go do this. So that's been the biggest thing for me, is just whenever my parents, and I feel like they're very good at this, so being involved and helping me in a loving, caring way, while also being tough about it. Like, hey, if this is your goal, this is what you're set to do, like, then you're gonna do it because you said you would. So yeah, that's all I have to add.
Cool. Yeah, make it quick.
I'm sorry,
No, you're good.
I just want to add something else too. So, the Yates allowed my son and I to come live into their homes. They established the rules for my son, and they established the rules for me to live in there. I'm an adult, but I need to follow the rules of their home, so it doesn't change. Whether your kid is 19, 30, or whatever, I'm 50. If I wasn't following the rules of the Yates home, they would be like, we're so sorry you can't live here, right? So it still needs to maintain regardless of where they're at. But, so each family needs to make their own decision of what the rules in their home is. And if your child needs to work a recovery program still outside of Cornerstone, then that's your rule. And if they're not doing that, that's their decision. They can do that elsewhere. So that's, to me, that's how you support. And so just to kind of give that example, and thank you to the Yates for letting me do that. And for my son too. I mean, they allowed a kid that was active in his addiction to come into their home and just really establish that. And because they were clear with it, things were fine. So.
Cool. All right. Well, I think that we have reached our allotted amount of time with you guys this morning. The Awakening tonight, make sure you are there. Melissa, Alana, and Mark. Is Mark still here?
Yes.
Oh, he's standing back there. Hey, buddy. I was expecting you to be next to her. Our Awakening tonight, which is a big deal. That's a big deal. That's like another one of those things that has to be earned. So come tonight, celebrate the Awakening, and thank you guys for being here this morning. Applause for these guys.